It is 2024 in Seattle, Washington. Sirens blare against the calm of the night as a figure rushes past and starts sucking the blood from someone walking down the street with no punishment. Even though it breaks everything the world it's built on, the reality of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, a game that is so out of touch with its predecessor that it forgets to uphold the basic values of the franchise. Forget everything you once knew, as this sequel takes everything beloved about the original Bloodlines title and lights it on fire. What remains is a stagnant city devoid of life, repetitive side quests that make the dead want to revisit their graves, and combat that is so generic it almost feels like it's created by AI. The only redemption comes from the critical story moments, which showcase enticing characters or dramatic events that are far and few in between. And I'm sorry to say, bloodsuckers, but the life has been sucked out of this one. So with all that being said, let's review Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 in this Game Sandwich review. Your undeath is meaningless. In Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, you awaken in the cold underbelly of Seattle, with the voice of a detective named Fabian in your head, who is the embodiment of a guy who can't get a grasp on reality. So, more or less, he must turn everything he can into a joke. The two of you must solve the mystery of why Fabian is in your skull, and how you received some mysterious mark that removed your elderly powers. And don't worry, Fabian will make sure that every beat feels just as fun as watching blood dry. Before you know it, you take your place before the court prince, and you're given a fancy new title. Now you must do the court's bidding while you get to know the city. This all happens in the most linear fashion imaginable, with little regard to character building and lack of depth. It's almost as if someone decided they needed to take the most direct route from point A to point B, without taking any detours that were essential to the first title, and what made that game worthwhile to play. We made it a point to play nice with our dialogue choices, knowing it would very often lead to the game telling me that Lo found something amusing, or Safia was embarrassed, only to hope it would kind of lead to some sort of payoff. Unfortunately, that payoff never came, and we were often left wondering why it even mattered, especially how we reacted to any primary NPCs. Even critical choices that should have came had an impact on how the story unfolded were ultimately meaningless, except to decide a specific ending. There is no nuance to the dialogue choices here, especially when you compare it to the original game, which felt more meaningful. Long gone are the barrages of characters that could impact the story in unexpected ways, as consequences are virtually meaningless. Whether we choose to send a character to place A or B resulted in them appearing in place A no matter what. Choosing to disrupt the court and break the masquerade was pointless as well, as it never came with any consequence that affected the story or hurt my character in any way. The plot armor was so uncanny that we practically begged to be put back in the coffin we awoken from. But it wasn't all that bad, as there were some redeeming moments that we genuinely enjoyed, and some characters did stand out to us. For instance, Isabella, the nightclub owner and the over-the-top artistic visionary, feels sinister, has a great look about her, and is a character that we would have loved to see more of. More good moments followed with other characters, but they were very far and few in between. In our entire playthrough, there were only 3 times where we felt the story was heading in somewhat of a good direction, but we were pulled back to the reality of this non-stop crime drama character talking in our head, turning what we did into some joke about edging that never really landed or generated any positive feedback on our part. During various parts of the game, you experience Fabian's backstory, and it's just as boring as his usual quips, with constant noir crime drama speech that stands in a stark contrast to what you experience in the present day. The style of noir writing is admirable, but it never became interesting, and the investigation can be summed up in a 2-minute speech. While Fabian was busy trying to figure out who the rebar killer could be, I was able to play detective and guess the answer after speaking to only a few NPCs. While some parts of the story did come as a bit of a surprise, the big reveals fell short and didn't sing the notes they should have. Rather, they fell flat with very little reaction other than a simple, huh? Seattle has the heartbeat of a vampire. Moving from the first game's Los Angeles to Seattle, one of the biggest changes I would have expected is for the city to be far more vibrant and full of life. Especially since this time around, it jumped 20 years into the future, and hardware power has made significant jumps since this period. But the world feels about as full as life as a corpse baking in the sun. There is an awkward air of silence that has overtaken Seattle, with fewer than expected NPCs enjoying nightlife, especially with what appears to be a popular nightclub and several red light district shops. Instead, most NPCs make random comments about feeding their cat, or about how winter is cold. It gives a general feeling of liveliness that matches a vampire's pulse. To draw a quick comparison, the first game had a very lively world despite its limited size, where if you made mistakes, they were seen. If you broke the masquerade, it was known, and you could only do so a set number of times, or there would be severe consequences. Throughout my time with Vampires Masquerade Bloodlines 2, we went out of our way to purposely break the masquerade numerous times. We would be reckless, bite NPCs in the middle of the street, and use our abilities with an audience to bear witness. And even then, we still received no consequences. It became a specific point to be as reckless as possible, because no matter what we did, as long as that bar indicating how much the masquerade was broken didn't fill, we knew we were safe. Even with police shooting us from every angle and NPCs screaming, we made it out safe every time with no consequences. The eerie calm of the streets doesn't enhance the experience either. It hinders it massively. It comes off as rushed and desperate despite the number of years it's been in development. Even when events unfold that increase the numbers of enemies you encounter, the world still feels barren. To end this lifeless experience, you have access to 5 different main NPCs that act as your contacts with different clans. Outside of this crew, you never meet any vampires who make a big impact. They gift you their blood so that an elder such as yourself may regain some of your dormant abilities. But even here, Bloodlines 2 is missing personality. You have very short conversations with each of these NPCs and barely learn anything about them. 3 of them give you side quests, which are the only side quests in the game, and every night they are the same task with different names. These side quests consist of you collecting or delivering mail and finding a target that needs to be taken out. The game may act as if there's numerous types of side quests, but basically there are 2 types of side quests within the game. We stuck it out to see if there would be anything that would change, and it never came, making us miss the days when you could stumble into a hospital, find a cannibalistic woman, and then you'd be given a unique side quest there. As generic as they come, being a vampire in Seattle, you are bound to have enemies, and they are plentiful, giving you ample opportunities to test out your new vampiric abilities. While there is a nice fluidity to combat, it is hindered by stuttering that throws off your movements if you chain them together too quickly. It was a common occurrence to experience a hiccup where we would turn without notice, our sprint would end, or I would just stop attacking. Issues aside, the combat is very generic aside from your vampiric abilities. We can name nearly any first-person game with parkour-style-like combat, and it would fit the mold of Bloodline 2's combat perfectly. Now, this isn't to say that the combat is bad. There's just nothing unique about it. It is adequate, which would generally be fine for a game like this, especially if there was anything else within it to boost it up. Rather, there is nothing to excuse the generic combat, making it all that more prevalent and even that more frustrating. A big part of the combat and movement system of the game is using your abilities to gain an advantage. We were lucky during the first playthrough we chose the Tremere, especially since we had experience with them from our limited time playing the first title. And blood magic is arguably a cool ability that should open up possibilities, such as launching blood daggers at your enemies or making them explode. With that said, we felt many other abilities from other clans didn't fit this world, and largely were useless in our hands, turning progression from something that should be exciting to something that is rather exasperating. While the combat is generic, there is something fun about it, and we genuinely do enjoy slashing up 3 types of foes that exist within the game. Along with this, there are some fun moments of parkour that feel well put together, such as when we effortlessly glide across rooftops of the nightfall in Seattle with the moon glinting off our skin. And it's moments like that which make the game avoid being counted as an abysmal failure. The final verdict. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is the sequel to an amazing game that was full of life, where everything felt meaningful and the design felt purposeful. Unfortunately, anything that its highly regarded predecessor had has been stripped away and replaced with a generic combat system, a story that tries too hard to be the next big crime drama, and a lifeless world with very little to do, and a masquerade court that, like us, has lost all care in the world. Very few benefits outweigh the negatives that have befallen this fictional version of Seattle, leaving us feeling very sorry for fans that waited 21 years to get a story like that. And if it wasn't for the Bloodlines name, it would have been forgotten to time except by the most faithful scene queens and goths. So with all that being said, Game Sandwich would like to give the Vampire Masquerade's Bloodlines 2 a 4 out of 10. If you happen to enjoy today's review or want more gaming content just like this, keep it locked to Game Sandwich for all your gaming news, rumors, and reviews. I've been Kalo, and we'll see you guys next time.